If you've ever sat alone in a booth with cold coffee and a heart heavier than the bill, this story is for you. And before we go any further, if moments like this resonate with you, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this only find their way to people who still believe that one small kindness can change everything. Now stay with me, because what happened that night didn't look like a miracle at first. It looked like a bad date, a tired waitress, and a man who thought the world had quietly decided to move on without him. The date had ended 10 minutes earlier, but Daniel was still sitting there, staring at the tiny crack in the laminated table, tracing it with his finger like it was a map that might lead somewhere better. She had left in a hurry, phone already in her hand, saying something about an early morning and a "you're really nice," but that never finished its sentence. He didn't blame her. He had talked too much. Or too little. Or maybe he talked about the wrong things: his failed startup, his dad's medical bills, the way his life felt like a house stuck half-built. He replayed every word like a judge looking for a reason to declare himself guilty. The diner was nearly empty now, that late-night quiet settling in like a blanket. Neon lights hummed softly in the window. Somewhere behind the counter, a radio played an old love song that felt almost cruel in its timing. Daniel reached for his wallet, thumb rubbing the edge of a credit card he'd already maxed out once this month. He considered leaving a generous tip anyway, because at least the waitress had been kind. Kind in that tired, professional way that didn't ask questions. She noticed him then. Of course she had noticed him all along. Her name tag said Maya, and she had the kind of smile that looked practiced but never fake, like someone who'd learned how to survive by softening the world around her. She came over with the check, paused for just a second longer than necessary, and tilted her head. "Rough night?" she asked gently. Daniel gave a small laugh that didn't quite make it to his eyes. "Is it that obvious?" She shrugged. "You should ve seen the guy who cried into his pancakes last week. You're doing better than him." She slid the check toward him but didn't immediately walk away. Instead, she looked at the empty seat across from him, then back at his face, reading something there he hadn't said out loud. He was halfway through saying he was fine because that's what people say when she surprised him. "If you want," she said, her voice quieter now, more human than professional, "I'll sit in your booth all night." Daniel blinked. He thought he'd misheard. People didn't do that. Not strangers. Not in real life. "You don't have to do that," he said quickly, embarrassment flushing his face. "I know," she replied. "I'm on break in 2 minutes anyway." She smiled again, softer this time. "Sometimes it's just nicer not to be alone." Something in his chest loosened, just a little. He nodded before his pride could stop him. "Yeah," he said. "That would be nice." Maya grabbed a mug of coffee for herself and slid into the booth across from him like it was the most natural thing in the world. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was the kind that felt earned. "She wasn't the right one," Maya said eventually, stirring her coffee. Daniel let out a breath. "You don't even know her." "I know that if she was," Maya replied, "she wouldn't have walked out like that." He smiled at that, really smiled this time. "You're good at this." "At what?" "At knowing what to say." Maya laughed quietly. "Trust me, I've said the wrong thing plenty of times." Her smile faded just a touch, replaced by something thoughtful. I've been there." So he told her. Not everything all at once, but enough. About the startup that failed 6 months in. About moving back into a tiny apartment he could barely afford. About watching his dad pretend he wasn't scared in hospital waiting rooms. About dates that felt like interviews he kept failing. Maya listened like it mattered, like he wasn't just killing time until her break ended. When he finally stopped talking, he realized how much lighter he felt, like he'd set down a heavy bag he'd been carrying for miles. "My turn," she said, as if reading his mind. She told him about growing up with a mom who worked double shifts, about dropping out of college when the bills got too high, about learning how to read people because it made tips better and nights easier. She admitted she'd once dreamed of opening a little bakery, a place where people came when they were celebrating or hurting or both. "Why haven't you?" Daniel asked. She smiled sadly. "Life keeps happening." He nodded. "Yeah. It does." The night stretched on. The diner emptied completely, then filled briefly with a pair of truckers, then emptied again. Maya's break technically ended, but she stayed anyway, hopping up now and then to refill a cup or run a plate back to the kitchen. Each time she returned, she picked the conversation back up like they'd never paused. At some point, Daniel realized he hadn't thought about the date in over an hour. He hadn't thought about how his voice sounded or whether he was saying the right thing. He was just there, being himself. And somehow, that was enough. When Maya finally stood and slipped her apron back on for good, Daniel felt a flicker of disappointment he didn't quite understand. "Thanks," he said, standing too. "For sitting with me. You didn't have to do that." She met his eyes. "I wanted to." He hesitated, then did something bold. "Can I come back sometime? Not as a sad guy in a booth? Just me." Maya smiled, brighter than before. "I work most nights." Daniel left the diner lighter than he'd arrived, the neon lights reflecting differently now, like the world had quietly shifted a few degrees in his favor. He came back the next night. And the one after that. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes just a few minutes. Sometimes they laughed so hard other customers stared. Sometimes they sat quietly, sharing the kind of silence that felt like trust. Weeks passed. Daniel found contract work. His dad's health stabilized. Maya started bringing in pastries she'd baked at home, asking for his honest opinion. He told her they were incredible, and this time, she believed him. One night, months later, Daniel sat in the same booth, watching Maya lock up the diner. She slid in across from him, no apron, hair loose, eyes tired but hopeful. "You know," she said, "I signed up for a weekend market. I'm selling my pastries." Daniel felt that familiar warmth in his chest, stronger now. "That's amazing." She smiled. "You were the first person I wanted to tell." They sat there a long time, remembering the night it all started. A terrible date. A quiet diner. One simple question that changed everything. And if there's one thing this story leaves you with, let it be this: sometimes the moment that saves you doesn't come dressed like a miracle. Sometimes it wears a name tag and offers to sit in your booth all night. If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because you never know who might need to hear that they're not as alone as they think.